Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to tell you about this model boat of an 18th century ship of the line and ramble a little bit about these magnificent ships from the age of sail. This is not a very accurate reproduction. As you see, the rigging is a bit random. It is not in a very good state either. The model has been damaged. But let's look at what we have, and I'm going to explain you where this kind of large warships came from. This kind of ship is called a three-decker because we have three different decks, 1, 2, and 3. Each deck carries guns, the heaviest one being on the lower deck for reasons of stability. You know that in order to maintain the stability of a large boat, it is always necessary to ballast it with heavy loads. In the 17th and 18th century, the ballasts were made with metal or stones that were put at the bottom of the hull, and putting the heaviest guns as low as possible was a way of balancing the ship and avoiding that it could lose its stability when all the guns were firing at once. At the back of the ship we have the wheel that controls the rudder here. And as this was a large ship, the back part, the stern of it, is divided into several levels, rather heavily decorated, where you could find the living quarters of the officers of the ship. This kind of warship commonly had several hundred sailors. Ordinary seamen to maneuver the sails, gunners in case of an attack, cooks, doctors, a priest sometimes, carpenters for repairs, apprentice sailors, a quartermaster, officers, a captain, and this group could sometimes spend months together because journeys were incredibly longer and also riskier than today. Now these large ship of the lines that were centerpieces in the navies of European countries in the 17th and 18th centuries had ancestors, and it's interesting to look back and understand how this design has appeared. During the antiquity and until the Middle Age, you know, the galley works with horsemen, but it is little adapted to long journeys, especially on the oceans, because it has to transport a very numerous crew of rowers mainly, and this means it has to transport food for everyone. And also the galleys have a flat hold, which means that they are little adapted to sailing on the oceans. During the age of galleys, naval warfare was very much a replication on the sea of land battles. The galleys carried as many soldiers as possible, and the strategy was first to try and ram enemy ships, hoping that it could destroy or sink them. But then there was a second phase, the boarding, and most of the fight was a hand-to-hand battle between the armies that the galleys transported. Now, with the beginning of the exploration of the oceans, new kinds of ships were necessary. So the Portuguese, who were the first to explore the Atlantic, designed a new type of vessel called the carrack. And the carrack already has a curved hull like these ships of the line, but it also maintains some of the characteristics of galleys. It had a large castle at the back and at the front, which is called the bow of the ship. And in these two castles, soldiers were positioned, and they could throw arrows or other things at the enemy before and after the boarding, benefiting from their defensive position. But in the 16th century, the progress in artillery started to change the rules of naval battles, and an increasing number of guns that were becoming much more efficient than before were installed on warships. And this made these high castles at the back and at the front of the ship less and less interesting. First, because they were very good targets for the guns of the enemy, and also because they had a cost in terms of stability of the ship, because of their height. As I said at the beginning, you want the lowest part of the ship to be also the heaviest to stabilize the ship, and these castles were the cause for many shipwrecks. So in the 16th century, during the exploration of the Americas, and as ships were now sailing farther and farther on the oceans, a new design appeared called the galleon, especially in the Spanish Navy, But here again, it was quickly replicated in the navies of England, France, and the Netherlands. This age of the galleon, which corresponds to the 16th and early 17th centuries, corresponds to the golden age of piracy in the Caribbean. I'll put a link at the bottom to the video I made about the pirates of the Caribbean. But warfare and technical progress continued to evolve, and the galleons progressively turned into ships of the line in the 17th century. Galleons are the fathers of this ship you can see here, because the tactics and techniques evolved, and boarding and hand-to-hand combat was increasingly replaced by artillery. The guns were now much more accurate, much more powerful than before, and instead of searching for a decisive fight between sailors, the captains preferred to fire at the enemy, trying to sink enemy ships or damage them enough to make them be impossible to maneuver, so that they could be captured. And in order to achieve that, you wanted to maximize your firepower and present as many guns as possible to the enemy. So at the start, galleons began to embark more and more guns. A second deck was built. These kind of ships that are called two-deckers appeared in the second half of the 17th century, and in the 18th century a third deck, three-deckers, appeared. This name, ship of the line, also reflects the tactics used in naval battles. Instead of going for a free-for-all like before in naval battles, when every ship was trying to fire at the opponent, then board enemy ships and take control of them, organization and discipline were now necessary to maximize firepower. So ships would now line up and march in front of the enemy fleet, firing at them. So naval battles now started to look like choreographies when they took place between two European nations. The two fleets aligned and marched in front of each other, trying to inflict as much destruction as possible. And the battle generally ended when one of the two sides decided to retreat because it considered the victory impossible. It is for this kind of battles that this ship was built, and this is why you have these three decks and this large number of guns. This is the reproduction, but as I said at the beginning, not a very precise one, of a French ship called the Royal Louis from the years 1750-1760. And this ship had more than 100 guns positioned on both sides. But these ships were not only designed for military reasons, some of them, the largest and most powerful ones, were also the flagship of the navy, and every national navy had a flagship which had to reflect the power, the wealth of its owner. And this is why the sterns, in particular, of these ships were heavily decorated, covered with statues, with paintings, with gold, and turned into true works of art, which continues to make us dream today. As always, I hope you had a good time watching this video. Your comments and ideas for more videos are welcome in the comments below. I will also write down links to other videos I made you may appreciate if you liked the topic of this one. See you soon, and